Yo, what's up, good people? We're back again with another review for y'all. All right, first things first, welcome to the
Phantom
Phantom Geek Zone.
Yeah.
I'm Izzy,
I'm Riyaal.
and this time around, we're going to be reviewing The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, so just what we're doing, we'll just reiterate it for those who
Joining us for the
for the
first
first time,
yeah.
and for those of you who know what's going on, basically we're doing a Marvel timeline review. So based on chronological timelines. So we're starting from chronologically the first Marvel movie, meaning Captain America.
As he was the first
Avenger. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there you go. So now today we are doing Incredible Hulk, which is number 4.
Yeah. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting one on a couple of different levels, I have to say. Least interesting of which being that there isn't that much to say about it, I have to say.
It's a like a by the numbers type movie.
And I suppose it also leaves room for us then to we'll add some speculation as far as what could have happened, why it is the way it is, and there are some things that were revealed, but we'll maybe see if we can try to fill in the blanks where that's concerned. But yeah, without any further ado, and I mean, first things first, the elephant in the room where this movie is concerned, which is this was the first and last appearance of the great Edward Norton as the
First
Incredible
rule
Hulk.
about Fight Club.
Don't talk about Fight Club. And yeah, man, look, I don't know if you've ever discussed this, even just us hanging out or whatnot, in terms of how we feel about the recasting, how we felt about him, and in the same way we did with Iron Man, where we said, because that is other incident, are these the only two cases of recasting? I think so.
Don Cheadle and
Don
Edward
Cheadle, Mark
Norton.
Ruffalo. I think the only times where a character was played
Yeah,
by someone
I think
new down the
I think
line.
main characters, yeah.
Main characters, without a doubt. Yeah. Oh, then the third one, which is I suppose relevant to this movie, is still technically upcoming. So General Ross in this movie, he passed away. Actor William Hurt. And of all people, Harrison Ford is going to be replacing him.
But Harrison Ford's in his 80s, so they must also still be like a bit careful.
But it's the way Disney and Marvel are redefining the movie star. Maybe sometime down the line, when we can figure a way to break it down properly, it could make for an interesting think piece episode. I feel. But anyway, so it was the first and last appearance of Edward Norton. We've never really broken down how we feel about him. We've said that with Iron Man, we're gonna do a proper comparison to the two roadies after the first appearance of Don Cheadle. So we'll do a similar thing with this, where we give a full breakdown. But of course, we'll still give our piece.
That's quite deep into it, because I think after this movie, it's Avengers, right?
Possibly, because
or did Civil War come before?
Or no. In terms of the timeline chronology,
okay.
It's between Thor and Avengers. I stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
But Avengers overall is the first appearance of Mark Ruffalo. Yeah. So when we do Avengers, we'll do a full comparison between Edward Norton and Mark Ruffalo. But of course, in this review, we'll be giving our
thoughts on the movie itself.
2 cents, I will say. Yeah. As far as Edward Norton's
2 cents out of circulation, technically it's 10 cents now.
We'll give out. Is it 10 or 20 cents then, as far as the phrasing?
No, 2 cents is alright.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to keep it, accurate as far as the South African currency. But anyways, cool. I think then, do you want to just cover the story first?
Yeah. So we can do story. So the intro is basically. It's like different shots or different shots of how Hulk was created. So they show like different documents, and then
the research documents.
Yeah, research documents, and then gamma radiation super soldier. Then they have shots of Edward Norton or Bruce Banner getting the radiation treatment, and then I think shots of them showing the Hulk and people being injured, and that is basically the beginning. So they don't really go into how Hulk was created, but you kind of get the gist from that opening.
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was, I mean, even if we sort of fast forward to Tom Holland's take on Spider-Man, it was that thing of, man, we've seen this origin story, And remember, this is the first MCU Hulk.
But but there is a Hulk movie before.
I don't even know how you want to break this down. It's like it's the third Hulk sort of.
Yeah.
There's actually more, but it's main Hulk.
So obviously, I think it was either this video or a third piece video. We mentioned that Lou Ferrigno is the OG Hulk.
Yeah.
And then you've got Eric Bana as in a CGI Hulk movie as well.
Yeah.
The ones with the dogs.
They dropped it in like 2003.
Yeah, 03 or 04.
Yeah.
So if you watch that movie, you kind of get a gist of how the Hulk was created.
Yeah. So they've already done the whole experiment thing, whatever.
Which I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
So that's why in this movie it was just done as a flashback instead of adding it to the main movie.
Exactly. So and a lot of superheroes movies going forward, you don't really need a background story.
Particularly those that we've seen before.
So like your Supermans, your Batmans, whatever.
Spider-Man, he takes the serum and then.
Yeah, he takes the serum. He turns into Hulk, and then the scene opens up with him in the favelas of Brazil. So he's basically isolating himself. He's alienated himself from his friends, his family, everyone he knows, because he knows he's got this monster inside of him.
Yeah.
And so he's working there. As he's working there, he gets a cut on his arm, on his finger, and that drops into
like what are the Coke bottles?
So it's a bottling factory.
Yeah.
And then the blood drops into one of the empty bottles. He seemingly cleans it up, but as the conveyor goes on, we see there's still blood on an empty
inside
bottle.
an actual bottle. Yeah.
And lo and behold, our savior, Lord and Savior, Stan Lee, is the one who drinks it and gets gamma radiation poisoning. And then that's how the story starts. So they find General Ross finds him in Brazil. They chase him back, and then it's just him getting back to the States and trying to find a cure.
Yeah.
So So the essence of this movie is Bruce Banner trying to find a cure, rather than trying to work, or how we later embrace being the Hulk.
Yeah. And then just to fill in a couple gaps there, right? So as you mentioned, as far as how Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk, he injects himself with the serum, right?
Yeah.
And
so obviously they're trying to replicate Captain America's super soldier serum.
Yes.
And with Bruce Banner, they're going through gamma radiation.
Yeah.
Pathway.
And now we learn in the movie that they had done a form of compartmentalization where information is concerned. Bruce Banner thought he was working on radiation prevention.
Something like that. He didn't really know it was.
Because as you know, the most common examples like with explosions, but just about any sort of do we say like energy emitting device, or from your cell phones to metros to whatever.
So gamma for those scientific people out there. It's an actual form of radiation. It's part of the spectrum. So you get your microwaves and whatnot, and then gamma is part of that.
So he was told he's essentially working on ways to prevent radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
Just simplify it that way, because we're geeks, not scientists. But and whereas as you mentioned, he was actually working on gamma ray
radiation. Yeah, just the poison.
Yeah, it was a gamma ray based super soldier serum in order to give soldiers enhanced abilities and that sort of story. Now he chose to inject it in himself because he got into a point where he's like, I figured things out, whatever.
He thought it was super safe.
Yeah, because the other thing is that the whole thing about human testing tends to be very, very tricky, whether it's ethics or red tape or both. So he's like, nah, man, I've got this. Let's go for it. And only to find that it's got arguably should we say the worst side effect known to man? Or, So instead of just, minor headache or whatever, he turns to a big green monster. Yeah. Where in that state he has no memories of what happened afterwards.
How did he describe it? It's like a dream, or it's like on a lot of acid.
Yeah.
That's his description.
He just goes into this, hyper state of mind. And even the Hulk has his own, version of being lucid and aware and whatnot. But as the human, when he turns back to normal, Bruce Banner doesn't know what happened, which means he could wake up at any sort of place, having done all sorts of things. Yeah. And in this movie, it's Brazil where he wakes up. And presumably he was in America not too long before then. So he's just like, no, man, I'm tired of this. Because it also leads to him leading a life of isolation in order to protect his loved ones, right?
And trying to find coping techniques to manage his
to manage his anger, because
well, you can't really say anger because the way it's the heart rate.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, the heart rate. The Hulk is just sort of perpetually angry, at least in the beginning. But basically, with Bruce Banner, in the movie 199 is pretty much the
so 200 is the
so I'd say when his heart is like 200 beats per minute, presumably that's when he turns into the Hulk. So he goes around, finding different practices, disciplines, and all, to manage his heart rate in spite of the situation. So General Ross, as you've mentioned, General Ross is a general within the U.S. Army, and he was one of the people, the guy in charge of this program, the Super Soldier program. And with Bruce having injected himself with the serum and having become the Hulk, if he had died, they'll discard him and move on, of course. Now, since this thing works to some extent, he is viewed by the government as their intellectual property.
Yeah.
Because he's running around, with their serum, pumping him up, number one. Number two, they have not been able to replicate the results with anyone else in spite of their efforts. So this is their closest chance in order to, get his blood, whether it's make use of him as far as them being a soldier of theirs, or at the very least be a test subject in order to replicate the process with other people. And then I suppose just as far as the specifics and so on, let's go for portrayal, right?
What is it? Characters.
Yeah, the character, but again, everyone else was like as ordinary as you could be in terms of that specific character for the most part.
Except Abomination, Tim Roth.
Yeah, and he was just like another creature, but we'll touch on him. The point being, I don't think there's much to say about the people around. Ross, he's just on some man. I want my formula back. I'm gonna send soldiers to get this guy whatever cost.
Betty was just my old flame is back. Let me just leave my new flame.
Yeah, Betty, which is but I think we'll get to some of those nitty gritties. But for now, just general portrayal and starting off with the main guy himself, Edward Norton as Bruce Banner, and then we'll speak on the Hulk specifically as far as this iteration.
I think. Sure, I enjoy Edward Norton's work, and I did enjoy him as Bruce Banner.
Yeah,
like he had a little bit of charisma.
Yes.
But not enough, not overpowering him being like a scientist and
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, and also him, just the way his portrayal is like, he knows he's got a problem and he's trying to manage it as best as he can, and you get that sense of urgency in him.
Yes,
it's quite nice.
Yes.
I think, and then obviously just his character, it was quite like, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's mainly what I'm thinking of. Yeah. I don't know your thoughts.
For me, man, I have to say, look, inevitably, because at this point we've seen every Marvel movie, and we were caught up with the entire timeline. But more specific to this case, we've seen both, Mark Ruffalo and Edward Norton in action. Yeah. So the comparisons are gonna come whether you want to or not. One thing I will say, I realized while watching this that certain things that we may be tempted to attribute to the actors and their portrayal is more attributed to the writing.
Oh, okay.
So we need to remember to to make those distinctions, and it brings about just to step back a little bit. It brings about the age-old conversation when it comes to adaptations, which speaks to what our expectation is meant to be when it comes to the so-called faithful adaptation. Do we purely base it on no man, but in the comics is this or in the cartoon is that, or do we give them a chance and some grace to to make it their own? And I think where this one is concerned, without trying to deviate too much in terms of other materials and stuff, but not at the basis of it, how I have always understood the character of Bruce Banner is, he's this guy who's got this monster living, never mind inside of him, literally at a lot of moments outside.
He is a monster,
and it becomes the embodiment. It takes over everything, including his body, his mind, you name it. And he's constantly living with that struggle. And I think as far as a compelling version of a character, because naturally there are moments where over time he evolves and, I think I like this version of Bruce the best. As far as the overall story is concerned, before you even step into Edward Norton, I just like to
Yeah.
think of the Hulk
I like
or
it.
Bruce Banner that way.
Yeah,
He's a guy
he's
struggling
scared.
to
He's scared of himself.
At any given moment, this
Yeah.
thing could just, snap and release. And any given moment, he's always just worried about that. That for me, I find to be his most compelling
You do
version.
get it, yeah.
And this is what that movie was based on.
Every stressful moment, you just see that look on his face, and it's like,
I was going to say, right now, when you step into Edward Norton's portrayal, you see it in his face, the worry, the stresses that, oh man, am I gonna? And I'm like, man, yeah, you certainly killed this thing without a doubt. And not only that, everything about Edward Norton, dog, like the face, his stature, which adds to, and I love it. Also made for, I'll say top 10 for now. Top 10 favorite posters. I'll keep it MCU because the poster for this movie is Bruce Banner in the front, and then the Hulk is just towering behind him.
Yeah.
The contrast, look, this is the Hulk. The tallest man in the world is nothing compared to the Hulk. But think about that compounding effect when you make it one of the tiniest people ever. So that
small in stature, yeah.
the juxtaposition.
He's not got MCU muscles, where everybody is just jacked. Yeah.
He doesn't look like he's in control. Never mind him acting, and he could be sleeping. He
looks fragile.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. He could be sleeping, and I'm like, yo.
He looks like a nerd, and not
like the most frail and fragile person, and I'm like, that's what I want to see because again, it adds to the contrast and it's just that juxtaposition of this guy at any moment becoming like the biggest, meanest, and greenest thing that you've ever come across. So I love that, and that being at the center of this movie is why I'll, to some extent, always have like a particular soft spot for it. And again, everyone else is just pretty much. I want to say basic, but also don't because it's maybe
it's a bit hard.
not giving them enough grace and so on. But again, I think it's the writing and how it came about because as you've mentioned, around him is then the ex-girlfriend that he had to leave because of his condition, but then he comes back to gain some assistance from her because she has the information he needs in order to pursue his mission of finding a cure. You've got Mr. Blue who's helping him craft the cure.
The mad scientist
and all of that. But yeah, the characters won't give it much to do with, except as you said, Abomination.
Blonsky,
I forgot his
Tim
character
Roth
name. Tim Roth
is his real name. Blonsky. I just remember Blonsky.
He's a soldier in the movie who essentially.
He becomes the Hulk over a period of time.
I want to say volunteers, but at the same time, it's like, is it volunteering? We don't really know what you're in for. But I suppose he was. Because he saw it and he's like, no, man, if this is what it takes, So there was a fight that he had with the Hulk because he was put in charge of the team to pursue the
first time
Hulk.
he saw the Hulk and he's like,
yeah.
And then I think he had a conversation with General Ross. He's like, how old are you now? It's like, I'm 39.
Yeah.
But if I had a body 10 years younger, I wouldn't want to face me now.
Yeah.
And then it's like, we can make it work.
And they realized that, this guy's mind and determination is exactly what you need in terms of someone who's in charge of, chasing down the Hulk and bringing him in, so to speak. So he essentially ends up taking the serum as well.
And over the course of the movie, I should say.
Yeah.
He becomes an addict for the serum.
Because also he got
three doses, I think.
Is it? I remember 2.
So he got
I remember
2 from
the first
the general.
one.
So he got the first one, and then obviously he got kicked into the tree.
Yes, and then he got the next
one, and then obviously
and then he got the final one really transformed. So there are 3, and that's the other thing. He's the only character aside from Bruce who has an actual progression throughout the story, which is why he becomes then the de facto, second most interesting character. But yeah, him and his portrayal. What do you have to say about that?
I liked it.
Yeah.
Tim Roth is just he's a good actor.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you what movies I've seen him in, but I know I've seen him in movies where he's been brilliant.
Yeah. I of course will always remember him in Pulp Fiction. As the good old Honey Bunny, and he was in Reservoir Dogs as well. He was the guy who was like shot and was like bleeding all over the place.
But he's just brilliant.
Yeah, he's a hell of a great actor. Very interesting seeing him in this role. The only thing I will say is, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's just like an aging thing or what, but when he gave his age, I was like, because he seemed a lot older than what he said in the movie.
Okay.
And that for me kind of threw me off because he looks that way even as the character, But that's probably me just nitpicking. But it just didn't hit the ear right when I saw him. But yeah, I certainly love the portrayal. I love the determination. I don't. He's British. Did he have an American accent in the movie?
No. He was British.
So yeah, for me, I don't know if they explained that.
They said born Russian and trained with the British military.
But with him being an American soldier, is he an American
soldier?
No.
They brought him in.
He's on loan. And okay, cool. That clears that up for me. Okay, fine. So he's playing an actual British guy. Cool. Yeah, man. I certainly loved his portrayal. In this movie.
Those are the two standouts.
Those are the two standouts, which brings us to the larger point, which we even spoke about before we started shooting, which is there isn't that much to say about this movie at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Quite basic.
It was okay as hell. And I forgot to tell you an interesting thing that I saw, because I watched this on Disney Plus. And so they have a section for Marvel movies, and then they'll break it down in terms of the different phases. No way in that section do you find the Incredible Hulk. So
they just forgot about
it. They've cast it aside. And I'm like, is this because you recast Edward Norton or what? Which would be weird, because we saw in Shang-Chi they kept Abomination around. And
they changed this concept out to be more in line with the comics, but they kept him in.
But General Ross is also still a thing. So it's not like the movie was rebooted or whatever. So I don't know. That felt like a weird thing. But again, when you watch the movie, it's like, it's among the most okay movies. It's not bad, but like it's super
not bad,
mid.
But it's not, mid is a perfect.
Super mid, But we were like, look, it's part of the timeline and all, so let's just speak on it, especially because it does still, in its own way, influence, what comes later on. And interesting thing, I have to say, I mentioned that this is my favorite version of Bruce ever. This is also my favorite version of Hulk by far. Because when I look at him,
art,
I'm like, which brings me again to the whole thing of how hard do we hold them to the whole comic book standard, but screw that, man. From the cartoon to the toys, man.
Like, they do this a few times, but when they show the Hulk just staring into the camera. And it looks menacing.
Yes.
But if I had Mark Ruffalo Hulk's...
So that's the thing, right?
I'm like, it's not menacing at all.
I'm saving those for when you get to Avengers. But this is
he looked menacing.
Is menacing. But he looked the way you imagine the Hulk. And the thing is, which is why it's sometimes hard to separate from the comics or whatever, because they will take an image and they will blast it to death and beyond. Because everywhere you see, whether it's like advertising and billboards, this, that, you see the same image of Hulk. So when he's put in a movie and he looks like that, you're like, yes. So excuse me, for me, definitely my favorite.
Absolutely agree with you.
From
I
a
think
visual perspective,
visually
version
looks
of Hulk. And again, at the risk of dipping into later conversations as far as the new Hulk, but what I also loved is that they showed that the Hulk doesn't need to talk in order to have emotions. The only two words he said, Hulk smash, and then that's his catchphrase. Other than that, like with his ex, I can't remember her name. Sorry, Betty Elizabeth. Elizabeth Ross.
I think he mentions Betty once.
They had like a lot of tender moments together where he was overprotective, and fam, he was screaming at lightning because on the one hand it frightened him definitely, but also just to protect her. And I'm like, there is Hulk being tender, not this thing of forcing him to have dialogue.
Or like when the cannons came in, or they were shooting.
And he went to protect her, without saying a word.
And then he gave General Ross the look, and then he left.
Like So it's like in later iterations, they felt the only way to show Hulk's emotions is to make him speak. And I'm like, guys, I understand the whole thing of character evolution and all, but
we were eventually getting there. But how they got there eventually, they completely missed the boat. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that for me, this felt more organic. So I will say that.
Any other highlights?
I was going to say, favorite shots and moments and all. For me, when he was in that glass bridge, and they threw the smoke cannons in there, the moment when firstly when that last shot before he transformed, and then when he jumped out, Like he just occupied the entire screen, man. Like they didn't do the whole thing of like showing him from afar and then he approaches. No, no, no. They showed it right there, and like his face, his body just filled the whole thing, and they still weren't even showing him in his entirety, just to emphasize his stature. So that for me, I loved a lot. And Tim Roth, what did you say his character name was?
Abomination. Blonsky.
Blonsky.
Yeah.
When he had taken the first set of the serum and he was running with the
Oh,
serum
yeah,
and he was blasting past them.
Yeah.
Man, I remember even from the first time I watched that scene just always stood out for me. Like,
It looks, you know what it reminds me of? Captain America and
Falcon Racing.
Yeah.
What I loved about it as well is how effortless it seemed,
Yeah.
which of course speaks to the power of the serum, and what it did. I mean, as gruesome as it might be for some, the shot when he got launched into the tree.
Bro,
Bro,
that scene was hectic because they pulled no punches there. They just pancake.
The CGI was just next level. And
I think
was there like one more? I
there
think
was talking about a shot or during the big fight scene at the end, where Hulk pulls out a spike of Abomination and
that was insane. And then stabs him with him.
Imagine your own body part is which attests to the ruthlessness of the Hulk.
And it's kind of like twofold sort of thing, like because he stabbed the Hulk with it before, and it was pretty much the only thing ever to cut through his skin. So for him, it was like, oh, okay, this weapon is the one. I'm gonna show you, and then he just cut into him. That actually brings me then into some of the moments I didn't enjoy as much. But if there's anything else that you enjoyed as far as the highlights and all. Someone like maybe the humorous moments,
a humorous moment, and I think it was unintentional, is the first time he transforms and he's in Guatemala at the market, and he asks for big pants, and then he gives it to him, and he's like, no.
So there was this big body lady behind him, and in order to try and check
gauge size,
if the pants will stretch to be big enough when he's the Hulk, he then measures them on that woman. And just so discreetly and something, I'm like,
so like this is what I miss about the newer Marvel. It's maybe it was intentional, but it's like it's so off the cuff and like it's not trying too hard.
And is that's subtle humor type of thing. Like they definitely don't know how to do that anymore.
Cool Easter egg is when he's in the university and he gives the student pizza. That student is a teacher in Spider-Man.
Oh yes, it's Martin Starr. Yeah, Martin Starr. He used the spelling bee dude, and then of course when he gave the pizza to the security guard to bribe him. That's the
OG Hulk.
Other Hulk that we spoke of, who got painted back in the day, just as he is, because he's so buff. Then he would be like the actual Hulk.
I think those are highlights.
For me, then, man,
that's about it. And that fight scene, I enjoyed the end fight scene.
For me, that's actually one of the things I didn't enjoy that much, purely because of let's say the lighting of the scene. They should not have had it take place at night, because remember, these are two pure CGI characters. So you have to think about things like how the light hits them, and also how the color is gonna show in that background.
Guess dark green and brown at nighttime.
So all of that on the background of nighttime just wasn't dope. Even when it was raining and he was in the cave, he doesn't look good when he's wet and it's like night, and it's just too many elements to add to the realistic look, which is much harder compared to just in the day. So those I couldn't help but notice, unfortunately. The fight itself
was fun. I enjoyed it.
You know what took away from the fight for me? The stakes.
Oh, okay.
Because again, we speak a lot about motivation and all, and I understand, Abomination's motivation.
He just was looking for a fight.
He just wanted to take him down, but at the end of the day, it just felt like he just want to fight. If we go back to Iron Man, he wants to, Obadiah Stane wants to kill Tony in order to take over the company. Simple as that. And the thing with Tony being so brilliant and resourceful, he's the type of guy that you have to kill in order to eliminate. Kicking him out of the company isn't just going to cut it. Abomination and Hulk. And here's an issue with a lot of Marvel third acts, is that's always where they have the big CGI villain hero fight. I don't mind that as a concept, but you need to choreograph it well, you need to motivate it well. It just needs to
camera work, as you mentioned,
there's a lot
lighting,
of other elements, to put into play. And so I just saw nothing but CGI clashing
Sure.
into each other again and again and again. And the stakes, if for instance, which is ironic because I'm also kind of getting over the whole damsel in distress kind of trope.
Yeah.
But
I
with
didn't-
this one,
This one didn't.
they didn't do that, but that could have saved that fight for me. Because fine, he's destroying the city,
Yeah.
I didn't feel the
I
stakes.
think they did Betty Ross's character dirty. I think she should have been.
Yes.
Well, fair enough. This is early Marvel, so like in terms of release,
Yeah, they
the
were still
second
figuring
movie,
it out. Yeah.
they're not doing strong female characters yet.
Yeah.
They could have made her a lot better as a strong female.
And not even like strong for the sake of being strong, but more of a well-rounded
Yeah.
character. I think that's more important than the strong thing because
at the end of the day, she just simped for Bruce Banner.
and for no real reason that you were my old love. Like
Yeah.
they didn't even do anything to establish the connection
Yeah.
besides just them being together and her defying her dad. Like it was as basic as you could get, So for me, and I almost, felt a way about her portrayal until I realized no, it's the writing, it's
Yeah.
not her. She didn't have much to do, to begin with. I mean, there was a whole thing about. So we mentioned earlier why, that Edward Norton got replaced as the Hulk. He says he left. They say some say he was fired. It's a whole thing, but he left. And as to the why,
Yeah,
he has a
writing,
reputation for writing and rewriting the script as he chooses. Now, this is not your normal improvisation thing. Like he's rewriting people's lines, he's rewriting scenes, like the entire thing. So he clashed quite out with the director, and then he also demanded, the right to edit the movie, and it was a mess. And I feel like perhaps that's also what has led to some of the mishaps we were identifying within the script, because I don't even think
internal conflict.
Yeah, man, I don't even think it was said as far as how it was before and
Yeah.
what was changed, and then so we can't attribute it to one or the other as far as he is the person at fault.
There's no Norton cut.
But it's maybe that could have saved it because funny enough, American History X, which is one of his most loved movies, he did the same thing. Clash heads with the director, rewrote the script, cut his own version, and that's what got released. And people were like, "Oh, amazing!" And he got an Oscar for it. So
Checks and balances.
Yeah, man. But again, for me, as far as I'm concerned, that could be about it as far as the movie goes.
That's pretty much it. I mean, obviously the end credit scene is Tony
Yeah,
Stark
then
is
it's
like,
just setting
we're
up the whole
assembling,
we're assembling a
Avengers.
team, and
Yeah.
but that's about it for me. And even when you look into what happens going forward, not only the overall arch, but even the Hulk himself, you can tell that they were trying to distance themselves away from this. And as I said, in some cases a good thing, in some cases it's bad. So again, touching just a little bit on the new Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, he's more in control. I had forgotten that was established at the end of this one.
Yeah, which was pretty cool because I thought that was where we were going. We were going straight into intellectual Hulk.
So maybe that for me answers because with watching Avengers, I remember seeing Mark Ruffalo, he had the classic line, that's
I'm
the
always
secret
angry.
captain, I'm always, and then he just transforms out of
Yeah.
nowhere. I always felt that wasn't built up enough,
Yeah.
but maybe this movie is the build up. But even so, I don't think they did the proper connection. And maybe seeing a different actor creates a distance that they need to
I feel
cover.
like Hulk should have been given a little bit more time in the subsequent movies.
Yeah.
I know
build the story.
with all the screening rights and why we haven't gotten a full-on movie.
Universal owns it.
But they could have given us more time to develop his character.
Yeah.
Because some characters, a standalone movie is fine.
Yeah. And
Your
for
Captain
others,
Americas, your Iron Mans, Thors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely brilliant.
Mhm.
But others, you don't really need a standalone movie. And Hulk is one of the characters you don't need it, but you can give them more time to shine in
other people's movies. And he definitely should have gotten that. But yeah, man.
Which is like Scarlet Witch. They've given her so much time to shine in other people's movies.
And she developed overall as a character immensely, And I think, one other thing, as far as, the movies I enjoyed, this is, I almost said a lyric. This is a quote from a movie I enjoyed when Blansky, he said, Blansky was like, again, imagine looking at the Hulk, right? I mean, when we see him on screen, it's one thing, but you were told to chase this guy, Bruce Banner. They didn't tell you why or what's going on. And for you as a soldier, the mission is the mission. You don't ask questions, you just do it. And then next thing, you just see this big green thing out of nowhere. And remember, his first transformation was off screen.
Which I liked. I liked that transformation because it's like
it did a build up
horror movie vibes.
Yes, I was gonna say, So he sees this and then he's like, what is going on? And he's the only one freaking out because everyone knows what they're dealing with. And then he's like, that thing threw a forklift at us like it was nothing. And it's like, put yourself in the mind of a person who saw something so powerful that it threw an entire forklift.
And your mind cannot fathom it. It's
exactly. And I'm like, I understand how much he's freaking out, which also adds to his motivation to want it to be as powerful as possible.
Yeah.
Because what else can defeat this thing, So yeah, that was another favorite moment that I had thought of. And then again, any maybe last thoughts or comments on this?
It had the potential to be more, but it wasn't. But as you say, internal strife. So
would you have wanted Edward Norton to stick around?
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
I also would have, without a doubt. But it's funny, and one day we'll speak about what Disney and Marvel have done to the classic movie stars. I may have said this before, I can't remember.
You mentioned because like in past. Oh, Harrison Ford.
Again, Edward Norton, he was a proper bona fide movie star. So it's hard for me to imagine him being in the MCU for that whole multiple movie iteration thing, and so perhaps in some ways it did kind of sort of work out. But without a doubt, I would have loved to see more of him as the Hulk, especially for that proper continuation of this story.
Imagine him and Tony Stark having interactions. Like, how cool would that have been? Or Robert Downey Jr.
And if you think about some of the classic Hulk moments we got later, if you got that via this version.
Imagine him like next to Chris Hemsworth.
Him fighting Thor in whether it's Ragnarok or even in Avengers, but we'll speak more on those moments as and when they come along. And there was a bit of a deliberation as to, should we cover this movie or what? But it's like, it's part of the timeline. Yeah. We need to do our due diligence. And it's because, as you've seen, there really wasn't that much to cover.
Yeah. It's a movie that flies by with not much substance to it.
Yeah. They turned it into a thriller movie in the bigger scheme of things, And as an origin movie, I've realized across the board, origin movies, I almost fell into the trap of thinking they're hard to make, but we've gotten some incredible ones. So I'm like, nah, they just failed it. As far as writing is concerned, and it's as simple as that.
Anything else?
No, okay, I'm good to go. Then I think with that,
do you want to give it a rating?
This is a 6, my man.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
And I feel like I'm being generous, but and a lot of that 6 is attributed to Edward Norton. Actually, it's not even like as a movie. And no, Edward Norton.
Two characters, Edward Norton and Tim Roth,
and then Blansky and Tim Roth. Blansky a lot more than Abomination. But between Bruce Banner and the Hulk, they did their thing for this movie. Even Ross as the general and I didn't feel he's in charge besides just giving orders, and his influence, I don't think, but man, so at 6 out of 10,
just about I can agree with the 6.
And again, I feel like I'm being very, very generous, but it's fine. I'll just stick with that for now. Then, as per usual, any comments, hell, even suggestions, I think. Then we'll see how we can fit it into.
So obviously we're doing the timeline piece, but if you have thought pieces you'd like us to discuss, we'd more than welcome some suggestions.
We could even do whatever you suggest more as a thought piece instead of review. We'll decide which realm it fits better
and into. Look, not MCU, any comic book movie.
Because again, this is more about being geeks at large.
Comic book movies,
If it fits into that pantheon, then let us know, and we'll definitely be happy to.
And don't forget to give us a look on Instagram as well.
Again, as usual, details in the description, But for the most part, if you just say the Facts and Geek Zone, you'll find everything related to us. And subscribe if you haven't, the whole shebang.
Do the sharing too.
Put people on, and but that's pretty much that from us for this one.
We'll see you for the next one.
Catch you at the next one. Night.
Guys, see you guys.
Sure.